I trusted my son completely, and that nearly destroyed me. For 67 years, I've been careful with numbers. 42 years as a chartered accountant in Vancouver will do that to you. I've audited corporations, caught embezzlers, testified in fraud trials. I've seen every trick in the book, every creative way people try to hide money or steal it. I could spot a discrepancy in a spreadsheet from across the room, but I couldn't see the betrayal growing in my own family. My name is Harold Morrison. My wife Eleanor died 2 years ago from ovarian cancer. It was 18 months of fighting, hoping, and ultimately losing. Those last weeks in the hospice, she kept saying things I didn't want to hear. Her voice was barely a whisper by then, but the words were sharp. "Watch Kevin," she'd say, her hand gripping mine with surprising strength. "He's changed, Harold, since he married Sandra. Watch him carefully." I'd kiss her forehead and tell her to rest. Kevin was our only son, our pride. He'd built a successful insurance brokerage in Calgary, married a beautiful woman, bought a house in Mount Royal. Success. That's what I saw when I looked at him. Eleanor saw something else entirely. After she passed, I stayed in our house in Kerrisdale for about a year, but every room held her ghost. Her reading chair by the window, her garden gloves still hanging by the back door, the indent in her pillow that I couldn't bring myself to fluff out. So I sold the house and moved into a condo in Cole Harbor. Paid cash, no mortgage. Eleanor and I had been disciplined savers our whole lives. Between my pension, our investments, and the house sale, I was sitting on roughly $2 million. Comfortable, secure. Kevin called me every Sunday evening. He'd ask about my health, whether I was eating properly, if I'd made friends in the building. Devoted son checking on his widowed father. That's what I believed. Then came the invitation. It was a Thursday in September when Kevin and Sandra showed up at my condo unannounced. I'd just finished my morning coffee and was reading the Globe when the buzzer went. Sandra was wearing one of those designer outfits that probably cost more than my monthly condo fees. Her highlights were perfect, her nails immaculate. "Dad!" Kevin hugged me the moment I opened the door. He'd put on weight since I'd last seen him, his face fuller, softer. "We have the most amazing surprise." Sandra produced her phone, scrolling through photos of a luxury cruise ship, crystal chandeliers, infinity pools, suites with private balconies overlooking glaciers. "Alaska cruise," Kevin announced. 7 days, the premium package. "And Dad, we want you to come. Our treat. Everything. The flight to Seattle, the cruise, shore excursions, the works." I started to protest. It was too extravagant, too much money. "Dad, stop!" Kevin held up his hand. "The brokerage just had its best quarter ever. Sandra and I can afford this. Besides, it's for my birthday. I'm turning 40 on the ship. I want my father there to celebrate with me." Sandra chimed in, her voice honey sweet. "It's what Eleanor would have wanted, Harold. For you to make happy memories with your family. That's what got me. Eleanor would have wanted that." So I said yes. The cruise ship was called the Northern Majesty, and it lived up to its name. I'd never seen anything so luxurious in my life. My stateroom had a king-sized bed, a marble bathroom, and a balcony where I could watch the coastline of British Columbia slide past as we headed north. Kevin and Sandra had the suite 2 doors down. They made a show of checking on me constantly, insisting I order anything I wanted from room service, making sure I knew how to reach them if I needed anything. "Just dial 7242 for our room," Kevin said, punching the numbers into my phone's contacts. "Anytime, day or night, we're here for you, Dad." There was something rehearsed about their attention, like actors who'd practiced their lines too many times. On the second evening, as we sat in the ship's champagne bar, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple, Sandra pulled out a folder. "Harold, there's just some quick paperwork the cruise line requires," she said casually, sliding it across the table. "Emergency contact forms, medical authorization in case anything happens on board. Standard stuff for passengers over 65. "I'm perfectly healthy," I said. "Of course you are," Kevin laughed. "But it's policy, Dad. Everyone has to sign. They won't let you do the shore excursions otherwise. Liability reasons." Something cold moved in my stomach. Eleanor's voice, A whisper from memory. Watch him carefully, Harold. I shook it off. This was my son, my boy who used to bring me his math homework and beam when I helped him get the right answers. The one who cried at his mother's funeral. I'll look it over tonight, I said, taking the folder. It's really straightforward, Dad. Just sign at the tabs. I'll look it over tonight, I repeated. 42 years of auditing had taught me never to sign anything without reading it first. Something flickered across Sandra's face. Annoyance? It was gone before I could be certain. That night, I sat on my balcony with the folder and my reading glasses. The ship had entered the inside passage, and the water was black and still, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. The first 3 pages were indeed standard cruise paperwork. Emergency contacts, dietary restrictions, mobility requirements. Pages 4 through 12 were not. I read them twice, then a third time, my hands growing steadily colder despite the heated balcony. It was a power of attorney document, not a limited POA for medical decisions during the cruise, but a comprehensive, durable power of attorney granting Kevin Morrison full authority over all my financial and legal affairs. Bank accounts, investments, property, everything. The language was buried in dense legalese, formatted to look like cruise line boilerplate, but I'd seen enough legal documents in my career to recognize what I was holding. My son was trying to steal my entire estate. I sat there for a long time, watching the dark water slide past, listening to Eleanor's voice in my head. She'd known. Somehow, even through the morphine haze of her final days, she'd seen what I'd refused to see. The next morning, I acted completely normal. I met Kevin and Sandra for breakfast in the main dining room, ordered eggs. Benedict made small talk about the itinerary. "Did you get that paperwork sorted, Dad?" Sandra asked, sipping her mimosa. "Still reading through it?" I said mildly. "You know me. Can't help but read every word. Professional habit." "It's really just standard forms," Kevin said. Was there an edge in his voice? I know. I'll get to it today." Old accountant's paranoia. They exchanged a quick glance. Just a flicker, but I caught it. After breakfast, I told them I was going to the ship's library to read. Instead, I found a quiet corner of the observation lounge and started making phone calls. My lawyer in Vancouver, Arthur Chen, didn't answer. I left a message. My financial advisor was in a meeting. I left another message. Then I noticed the woman. She was sitting 3 seats away, pretending to read a novel but clearly listening to my conversation. Silver-haired, elegant, with sharp dark eyes behind fashionable glasses. When I caught her looking, she didn't glance away. Instead, she stood up and walked over. "Forgive me for eavesdropping," she said, her accent a melodic blend of British and something African. "But I couldn't help hearing you mention power of attorney documents and a lawyer. I'm Patricia Okonkwo. I was a corporate lawyer in Toronto for 35 years before I retired. Harold Morrison, accountant, Vancouver. May I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, crossed her legs, and studied me for a long moment. "Your son and daughter-in-law," she said. It wasn't a question. "Excuse me? I saw them with you at dinner last night. I saw the way they kept touching your arm, the way they laughed too loudly at your jokes. I saw the wife slip paperwork across the table." Patricia's voice was calm, clinical. "I've seen it before, Mr. Morrison. I've seen it happen to others on this ship." "What do you mean, others?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder. 18 months ago, my brother-in-law Bernard took an Alaskan cruise, a gift from his stepdaughter and her husband. He was 73, recently widowed, sitting on considerable assets from his late wife's family trust. They convinced him to sign what he thought were shore excursion waivers. They were actually documents transferring his investment accounts into a joint account they controlled. My throat went dry. What happened? They drained everything. $2.3 million. By the time Bernard realized what had happened, the money was gone. Offshore accounts, cryptocurrency, untraceable. Did he go to the police? He did. But the documents were legally signed. His stepdaughter claimed he knew exactly what he was signing, that he was getting confused in his old age, mixing up the details. Patricia's voice hardened. Bernard had a stroke 6 weeks later. He's in a care home now. Doesn't recognize anyone. I felt sick. Why are you telling me this? Because I recognize the pattern, Mr. Morrison. The expensive cruise, the excessive attentiveness, the paperwork disguised as routine forms. I've been researching elder financial abuse since Bernard's case. It's more common than you'd think, and the perpetrators are almost always family members. You don't know my son. No. But I know what I saw. And I know that look you have right now, the one that wants to believe there's an innocent explanation. She leaned forward. Is there an innocent explanation? I couldn't answer. Because I'd read those documents, and there was nothing innocent about them. What do I do? I finally asked. First, don't sign anything. Not yet. Second, we need to understand exactly what they're planning. And third, she pulled out her phone. My niece is a Crown prosecutor in Calgary. She specializes in financial crimes. I'm going to give her a call. Over the next 2 days, Patricia became my unexpected ally. We met in different parts of the ship to avoid Kevin and Sandra's notice, comparing notes, building a timeline. Patricia's niece, a sharp young lawyer named Amara, ran some background checks on Kevin. What she found made my blood run cold. Kevin's insurance brokerage wasn't thriving. It was drowning in debt. 3 lawsuits from clients claiming misrepresentation. A formal complaint filed with the Alberta Insurance Council. His Mount Royal house had 2 mortgages against it. Sandra's Instagram lifestyle was funded entirely by credit cards that were maxed out and accounts that were overdrawn. They weren't successful. They were desperate. And they'd identified their solution. Me. I played the part of the oblivious father. I went to the shore excursion in Juneau, marveling at the glaciers. I attended the captain's dinner, making small talk about retirement and the weather. I let Sandra keep refilling my wine glass. Let Kevin keep calling me Pops, even though I'd always hated it. But at night, I photographed the documents. I recorded conversations on my phone. I built a case the way I'd built cases against embezzlers for 42 years. On the 5th day, Sandra's patience started to fray. Harold, we really need those forms signed, she said at lunch, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The cruise line is asking about them. If they're not submitted by tomorrow, they might restrict your shore access for Ketchikan. Oh, of course. I've just been enjoying myself so much I keep forgetting. I patted my pocket. I'll sign them this afternoon. I promise. Maybe we could just do it now? Kevin suggested. I have a pen right here. After lunch. I want to read them one more time. Professional habit, you know. That afternoon, I found Patricia in the ship's business center. I'd asked her to be there. I'm going to sign them, I said. Her eyes widened. Harold, you can't possibly. I'm going to sign them with a deliberate error. Wrong date, inverted numbers in my birth year, enough to make the documents legally invalid, but not so obvious that they'll notice immediately. Patricia studied me for a long moment, then smiled. Clever. Very clever. And then, Kevin's 40th birthday dinner is tomorrow night. He's rented the private dining room, invited a dozen other passengers he's befriended during the cruise. I paused, including a retired RCMP officer named Douglas Fraser and his wife. I've been talking to Douglas. He's been investigating financial crimes for 30 years. You've been busy. I've been an accountant for 42 years, Patricia. I know how to build a case. And I know that the best time to close one is when the perpetrators think they've won. The birthday dinner was elegant. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, a view of the Alaskan coastline sliding past in the twilight. Kevin sat at the head of the table, Sandra beside him, both of them glowing with what I now recognized as anticipation rather than celebration. The forms had been signed that morning. Sandra had practically snatched them from my hands, disappearing to file them with the cruise office. By now, she'd probably scanned them to whatever lawyer was helping them execute the theft. There were 12 guests at the table, including Douglas Fraser and his wife Mary, Patricia Okonkwo, and several other couples Kevin had charmed during the voyage. The dinner proceeded through appetizers and soup. When the main course arrived, Kevin stood up to make a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here, he said, raising his glass. Turning 40 is a milestone, and there's no one I'd rather celebrate with than family and new friends. He looked at me, his expression warm. Especially my father. Dad, these past 2 years since Mom passed, you've been so strong. Sandra and I consider it our privilege to take care of you now. To Dad! Everyone raised their glasses. I smiled and nodded. Then I stood up. If I might add something, I said, and my voice was steady. 42 years of presenting audit findings to hostile boardrooms had prepared me for this moment. Kevin's smile flickered. My son just spoke beautifully about family taking care of family. I agree completely with that sentiment, which is why I need to share something with everyone at this table. Dad, maybe you should sit down. Yesterday morning, I signed documents that my son and daughter-in-law provided, believing them to be cruise ship paperwork. I pulled out my phone. They were not. They were power of attorney documents designed to give Kevin complete control over my financial and legal affairs, my home, my savings, everything I've worked 67 years to build. The table went silent. That's ridiculous, Sandra said, her face white. Harold, you're confused. Those were just emergency contact forms. I've been a chartered accountant for 42 years, I said quietly. I know the difference between an emergency contact form and a comprehensive, durable power of attorney, and I documented everything. I turned to Douglas Fraser. Douglas, you spent 30 years investigating financial crimes with the RCMP. I've shared these documents with you. What's your professional assessment? Douglas stood up slowly. His presence changed, became something more official, more authoritative. The documents Mr. Morrison signed were indeed a comprehensive power of attorney, he said, deliberately formatted to resemble standard cruise paperwork. In my professional opinion, this constitutes attempted financial elder abuse, potentially fraud. Kevin shoved back from the table. This is insane. Patricia, tell them. He stopped, realizing his mistake. I don't believe I introduced Patricia to you, I said mildly. How do you know her name, Kevin? His face went gray. Patricia stood up now. I approached your father 3 days ago because I recognized the pattern. My brother-in-law was victimized by a similar scheme. I've been researching these cases ever since. Your father isn't the first elderly widower to be targeted on a cruise by family members. She looked at Kevin with something like pity. He won't be the last, but he will be one who fought back. Sandra grabbed her purse. This is defamation. We're leaving. Kevin, let's go. You can leave the dining room, Douglas said, but the ship's security has already been informed, and when we dock in Seattle tomorrow, there will be officers from the FBI's Elder Fraud Unit waiting to ask you some questions. Kevin turned to me. His face was a mixture of rage and something I'd never seen in him before. Fear. Dad, you don't understand. We're in trouble. The business is failing. We were going to lose the house. It was temporary. We were going to pay you back. You were going to steal $2 million from your own father, I said. And if I'd actually signed those documents correctly, you would have taken everything I have. My home, my retirement, my security. I shook my head. Your mother warned me about you, Kevin. In her last weeks, she begged me to be careful. I didn't listen. I thought it was the morphine talking. Mom knew? Something cracked in his voice. She knew you'd changed. She could see what you were becoming. I couldn't. I didn't want to. Sandra was already at the door. Kevin, now. Kevin looked at me one more time. There were tears in his eyes, but I couldn't tell anymore if they were real or performance. I'm your son, he whispered. You were my son, the boy who used to help me rake leaves and made his mother laugh. I don't know who you are now. I sat back down. But whoever you are, you're not my responsibility anymore. They left. The dining room was completely silent for a long moment. Then Douglas Fraser cleared his throat. I think I'll check in with ship security, he said. Make sure our guests don't try to disembark at an unscheduled stop. He and Mary left. Patricia sat down beside me. How are you feeling, Harold? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. The ship docked in Seattle the next afternoon. True to Douglas's word, there were federal agents waiting at the customs checkpoint. I watched from a distance as Kevin and Sandra were pulled aside, their luggage searched, their phones confiscated. Sandra was screaming about lawyers. Kevin wasn't saying anything at all. I gave my statement to a patient FBI agent named Rodriguez. 3 hours of questions, document review, recorded testimony. When it was over, she shook my hand. Mr. Morrison, I've worked elder financial abuse cases for 8 years. Most victims don't realize they've been robbed until it's too late. You caught this before they could file the documents. That's remarkable. I got lucky, I said. Patricia spotted them before I did. Maybe. But you also listened. Most people don't want to believe that their children could do something like this. They refuse to see it even when the evidence is right in front of them. My wife saw it. 2 years ago, before she died, she tried to warn me. Rodriguez nodded slowly. She sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. I just wish I'd listened sooner. I flew back to Vancouver that evening. Patricia was on the same flight. She was visiting friends in the city. We sat together in business class, not talking much, just sitting in comfortable silence. What happens now? She asked, as we began our descent over the mountains. I don't know. Arthur, my lawyer, called me back this morning. Turns out there's something I didn't know about. I paused, still processing what he'd told me. Eleanor set up an irrevocable trust 18 months before she died. Everything significant. The condo, the investments, my pension distributions, all held in trust with Arthur as the trustee. Even if I'd signed those documents correctly, Kevin couldn't have touched any of it without Arthur's approval. Patricia stared at me. Your wife protected you from beyond the grave. She knew I wouldn't listen to her warnings. She knew I'd trust Kevin despite everything she said. So she took matters into her own hands. My voice caught. She was always 3 steps ahead of everyone, even me. Especially you? Especially me. When I got home to my condo, it was exactly as I'd left it. Clean, quiet, safe. The view of Cole Harbor sparkled in the evening light. But something was different now. Or maybe I was different. I went to the closet where I kept Eleanor's things. Her jewelry, her reading glasses, the journal she'd kept during her illness. I'd been too raw to open it after she died, too afraid of what I'd find. I opened it now. The entries started about 6 months before her diagnosis. Just observations at first. Kevin seems distant lately. Sandra keeps asking about our estate, the way they look at us sometimes, like they're calculating something. Then came the diagnosis, and the entries changed. They became instructions. Contact Arthur about the trust. Make sure everything is protected. Don't tell Harold. He won't understand. He sees Kevin the way he was, not the way he's become. The last entry was dated 4 days before she died. Her handwriting was shaky, barely legible. Harold will be angry when he finds out what I've done. He'll think I was paranoid, that I didn't trust our son. But I've watched Kevin change over the past 5 years, watched Sandra's influence twist him into someone I don't recognize. I can't stop what's coming, but I can protect Harold from the worst of it. Sometimes love means doing what's necessary, even if it's not what's wanted. I love you, Harold. I love you enough to protect you from your own blind spots. You always did see the best in people, even when the best wasn't there. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, holding her journal, and I cried. Not quiet tears, but huge, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep. She'd known. She'd always known. And even in her final days, racked with pain and pumped full of morphine, she'd been thinking about how to save me. I'd spent 2 years believing she was paranoid. 2 years dismissing her warnings as the irrational fears of a dying woman. But Eleanor had seen clearly what I'd been too blind to acknowledge. Our son had become a stranger. 3 months later, Kevin pleaded guilty to attempted elder abuse and fraud. His lawyer negotiated a deal with the prosecutors. 2 years probation, mandatory financial counseling, restitution payments that would take him decades to complete. The insurance brokerage was shut down. The house in Mount Royal was sold to pay off creditors. Sandra filed for divorce 2 weeks after the plea deal. I heard she moved back to Ontario to live with her parents. I never saw her again. Kevin sent me a letter from Calgary. I recognized his handwriting on the envelope, the same cramped script he'd had since elementary school. I held it for a long time before opening it. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable. I knew it was wrong when I was doing it, but I convinced myself it wasn't really stealing, that you had more than you needed, that we were in trouble and you would have helped us anyway if you'd understood how bad things were. Those were lies, I told myself. I see that now. Mom was right about me. I changed. I don't know when it started or how it happened, but somewhere along the way, I became someone she wouldn't have recognized. Someone I don't recognize. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, but because of who I became. Because I was willing to steal from my own father to maintain a lifestyle that was built on sand. I'm getting help. Therapy, financial counseling, all of it. Maybe someday I'll be someone worth knowing again. But even if that day never comes, I wanted you to know that I understand what I lost. And it wasn't money. It was you. Kevin, I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't look at it again. I don't know if Kevin will change. People do, sometimes. They hit bottom and rebuild themselves into something better. Or they don't. They stay broken, making the same mistakes over and over, blaming everyone but themselves. What I do know is that his choices are not my responsibility. I spent too many years trying to see the good in him, trying to believe that the boy who used to bring me his math homework was still in there somewhere. Eleanor tried to tell me the truth. I didn't want to hear it. I'm listening now. Patricia and I have stayed in touch. We meet for coffee every couple of weeks when she's in Vancouver. She understands what it's like to grieve someone who's still alive. Her brother-in-law, Bernard, passed away 6 months ago, never having recovered from his stroke. The people who stole from him never faced consequences. The money was never recovered. Does it help? She asked me once. Knowing that Kevin will be punished? I thought about it for a long time before answering. It doesn't undo what he tried to do. It doesn't bring back the relationship we had or the person I thought he was. But there's something important about consequences, about not letting people get away with cruelty just because they're family. Your wife understood that. She understood a lot of things I'm only now figuring out. I've been reading Eleanor's journal regularly now, not the sad parts, the parts about her illness and her fears. The earlier parts, from when we were younger. Our trip to the Maritimes in 1987. The summer Kevin learned to ride a bicycle. The night we sat on our patio in Kerrisdale, drinking wine and talking about growing old together. She was always the wise one. I was always the optimist, seeing possibilities where she saw patterns. Together, we balanced each other out. Without her, I'm learning to be both. I'm 68 years old now. I have good friends, a comfortable home, and Eleanor's wisdom protecting me from beyond the grave. I read her words sometimes, especially on hard days, and I hear her voice in them. Watch carefully, Harold. Trust, but verify. Protect yourself, even when love makes you want to be vulnerable. She was right about everything. I was wrong about my son, and I don't mean that in a good way, but I'm okay with it now. Because sometimes the most important truth is the one you don't want to see. And the greatest gift someone can give you is protecting you from your own blind spots. Eleanor gave me that. Even in death, she was still teaching me. She was still loving me. She was still 3 steps ahead. I just wish I'd listened sooner. But I'm listening now.